Everyone knows about the battles of Normandy and Dunkirk. But did you know that some of World War II's most intense battles were fought at sea? Yep, the war brought in a wave of cool tech, especially in naval combat. The best of all these ships was the Shokaku, a Japanese carrier, and the key to Japan's Pacific theater strategy. This is a story of how a lone U.S. sub destroyed Japan's most important ship in the war. First, let's rewind to the 1920s. Japan signed a deal called the Washington Naval Treaty. It was like a rulebook limiting the size and number of massive warships. But as Japan went all expansion mode, these rules felt too tight. So in 1936, Japan said goodbye to the treaty. They started drafting plans for new aircraft carriers that would learn from past lessons. In 1937, the real action began at the Yokosuka Naval Yards, where they kicked off building the Shokaku. The name means flying crane, giving you an idea of the majesty they envisioned. This ship wasn't just a vessel, it was a floating airbase, a force to be reckoned with in the vast Pacific. The designers were dreaming up a colossal ship that could carry a whopping 96 aircraft. But hey, practically kicked in, and they settled for a slightly smaller version. Still impressive, holding 72 planes. Then a year later came a more impressive sister ship, Shokaku, aka Lucky Crane. These two were the only exclusive members of this class, born to rule the seas. When the Shokaku rolled off the construction line, it was a heavyweight champion, tipping the scales at 25,600 tons, stretching 845 feet long, 85 feet wide, and standing tall at 29 feet. This ship was a beast. It had a crew of 1,660 sailors, hustling on a floating air fortress carrying 72 aircraft, from fierce fighters to bombers, all snug in 2 hangars with room for 12 spare parts. Now, let's talk speed. The Shokaku could zip through the waves at a cool 34 knots, thanks to 4 Kempon steam turbines flexing their muscles, boasting a hefty 160,000 horsepower. Loaded up with a hefty 3,500 tons of fuel, the Shokaku was a nautical powerhouse, boasting an operational range of 7,700 nautical miles when cruising at a cool 17 knots. Now let's dive into firepower. Loaded with 8 twin mounts of 5-inch guns and 36 anti-aircraft cannons at 25 millimeters each. Safety was key for this ship. That's why they had 6.5 inches of waterline armor, almost 5 inches near machinery zones, and a 4-inch shield for the deck. Surprisingly, the flight deck still had a wooden finish. By August 8, 1941, after years of hard work, Shokaku officially hit the seas. A quick shakedown cruise later, she joined Carrier Division 5, part of a task force under Admiral Yamamoto's command. Battle prep kicked off for the big mission. The target? American naval hubs at Pearl Harbor's Hawaiian outpost on December 7, 1941. Shokaku, alongside 5 other carriers, executed a double-wave attack. Shokaku's air group lost only 1 dive bomber in the entire showdown. A 3rd wave was in the works but got the cancellation call, and the fleet made a U-turn back to Japan. After cruising familiar waters, Shokaku changed scenes and headed for Truk, a strategic base of operations. By January 1942, she plunged into action with a massive raid on the Australian hotspot, Rabaul, a critical hotspot for Japan's expansion into Papua New Guinea. Stirring waves, Shokaku and a partner carrier tracked down an American carrier group near the Marshall Islands post-raid. Despite a bit of chase, the American fleet pulled off a daring escape. Next up, March and April marked Shokaku's Indian Ocean debut. The ship launched fierce strikes on Colombo, now Sri Lanka. In the heat of battle, British cruisers HMS Cornwall and HMS Dorsetshire found their final resting place on the ocean floor. The drama continued as the British carrier HMS Hermes, flanked by a corvette destroyer and 2 tankers, tried a strategic exit but ended up trapped at sea. The result? They joined the sunken club, delivering a hefty blow to the British fleet in the Indian Ocean. After a quick pit stop in Truk, Shokaku returned to the limelight, backing the planned invasion of Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea. Sailing alongside her sister ship, Shokaku, and the petite light carrier Shoho, plus a bunch of escorts, they were geared up for action. But hold up, there was a twist. American intelligence cracked the Japanese naval code. They tipped off Admiral Chester Nimitz. In a gutsy move, the carriers Lexington and Yorktown got the green light to intercept the Japanese before hitting Port Moresby. In the epic naval face-off from May 4th to the 8th, 1942, known as the Battle of the Coral Sea, both fleets threw punches, making the first time ships couldn't eyeball each other in naval history. Now in this epic clash, the Shokaku's aircraft pulled some serious weight. They sank the Lexington and gave the Yorktown a run for its money, plus a destroyer and an oiler on the side. The Japanese, unfortunately, had to bid adieu to the Shoho, a destroyer, and a few other sidekick ships. But here's the thing, the Shokaku took a hit from 3 American dive bombers, causing chaos and claiming 223 sailors. Yet the damage control squad swept in like heroes, wrangling those flames under control, and off the Shokaku went to Japan for a makeover. Sadly, she missed out on the Battle of Midway, putting a dent in Japan's naval forces for a big showdown. By August 1942, the Shokaku was back in the game. This time, she aimed to stir up trouble during the American landing on Guadalcanal. Teaming up with the Zuikaku and a light carrier, she faced off with 3 American carriers in the Battle of the Eastern Solomons. Miraculously, the Shokaku emerged unscathed. But the toll was heavy. 10 dive bombers, 5 fighters and their crews said their goodbyes. Back to truck she went before plunging into the Battle of Santa Cruz Islands on October 26th. That's when the dive bombers from the USS Hornet unleashed havoc on Shokaku, causing major damage and taking out a chunk of the crew. The Shokaku limped back to truck before heading to Japan for serious recovery. In May 1943, Shokaku made a comeback, trying her luck in the Aleutian Islands, but failing. After a laid-back stint in truck, she set sail for Singapore in 1944. Navigating the Marianas Islands in June, she tangled with American submarines by June 15th, and on the 19th, engaged in American forces in the Philippine Sea, aka the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. Mayhem broke loose as hundreds of Japanese aircraft met their end, sealing Japanese naval aviation's fate. Now the Shokaku was refueling when the USS Kavala out of nowhere spotted her. For half an hour, Kavala tailed Shokaku, keeping an eye on nearby destroyers and cruisers. With the coast clear, Kavala fired torpedoes from 1,200 yards. Lookouts on Shokaku got the heads up, but it was too late. 3 or 4 torpedoes struck starboard, up front, and amidships. Kavala made a getaway, chased by Japanese destroyers. Shokaku's crew, pros in the game, hustled to fix the damage. Despite know-how, damage control struggles with spreading flames, fueled by deck aviation fuel. Torpedoes and bombs explode and the ship tilts, water gushing in, especially in starboard boiler rooms. Ammo pops, power dies, and the pumps fail. Kaboom! The Shokaku decided to cool off in the water, and firefighters tried everything to put out the flames. Buckets, prayers, you name it, but the flames weren't having it. 3 hours into the fiery dance, the flames spread from the elevators onto the flight deck. The call came, abandon ship. But before the crew could reach the lifeboats, kaboom! Explosions turned the bow into a water park, tossing the stern into the sky. Crew members became involuntary slip-and-slide champs, landing in the still blazing fire deck or making a splash in the oil-laden water. Now, Captain Matsubara and 570 survivors hitched a ride with cruisers and destroyers. Sadly, the Shokaku and a whopping 1,272 crew members said their goodbyes to the surface, settling down for an eternal sleep at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. It wasn't just a ship sinking, it was a major blow to Japan's war effort. Even though her downfall became a symbol of Japan's later loss in the war, the Shokaku was the best ship in Japanese naval power. Thanks for tuning in, and if you want to catch more awesome content like this, make sure to click on the next video.